Well, hello, lovelies. Before we get into this week's episode, I have some pretty dang exciting news. I have not talked about this at all on the podcast, but I sent out an email to my list last week. So some of you will have heard spilling the beans on the news that come December 12th, in a few days, yours truly will be a published author. um yeah, I want to update you guys because I want you to get to be a part of this. I have just been so busy with so much this year, and this has been kind of quietly happening in the background. So let me update you all. One of my dear friends and fellow coaches, and in fact, as you guys know from the podcast, I went to Burning Man. She is the woman that invited me and took me to Burning Man with her, Chandra Zoss. Back at the start of 2024, she invited me to be part of writing a book about human potential along with 17 other authors. I mean, talk about a huge project. The scope, I'm just so in awe of her taking this on. And that journey has taken over those 2 years of her tenaciously staying with it, herding cats, figuring out all these different pieces. I mean, it's just, I've watched her from afar and been in awe at how she has stuck with it and really brought this project to this beautiful culmination of it actually being born, actually getting published. And it is finally epically culminating on this Friday, December 12th, when our book goes live and we have our launch day. So, not only do I love the chapter that I wrote for this book, y'all, I loved that in this chapter, this was 2 years ago. So this was like back when I had just barely started the podcast. And it's definitely a different flavor that you're going to get of me. It's a chapter where I got to kind of dive far deeper than I ever have on the podcast, into these beliefs that I identified, when we were all kind of figuring out what we were going to write about, what our chapters were going to be about. I really realized, what does it take to live a soul-led life? And I poured over all my stuff and realized it really comes down for me and what I've seen in my clients to these beliefs that I share in my specific chapter. So not only is there that, which I think is super delicious, and it's a beautiful, the work that I did on that chapter is some of my favorite writing. It was something that I was very, very proud of, and I think you guys will really enjoy, especially if you enjoy what you get on the podcast, but you want to go deeper, right? I haven't had as much time lately. Like, I'm so excited to write more on Substack, but haven't had as much time. And so this was an opportunity where I had time to really draft and redraft and redraft. So my chapter is beautiful, but also along with that are so many other incredible authors and topics, including like one of the ones I'm most excited about, becoming more sexually empowered and erotically embodied. There's a chapter on gaining vitality while reimagining aging, brain healing with psychedelics, returning to holistic movement, minimizing the lasting impact of pain and suffering with therapeutic breathing. Like, just so many beautiful people and so many beautiful techniques in this book that I'm sure many of you are going to like eat up. So, I wanted to drop info here on the podcast for how you can support our book. And the most powerful way to help us is going to be helping us reach bestseller status this Friday, the 12th. So, to do that on Amazon, we need to have as many people as possible purchasing the book on that specific day. Buying on launch day matters. It can, move us up to bestseller status, and then that promotes us much more widely. So, in order to get notified the moment it goes live, to receive book price discounts and get the link to the virtual launch party we'll be doing that day, the easiest way is to join our inner circle by going to handbookforhumanpotential.com. Alex is going to link all of these in the show notes, so don't worry, you can go there as well. and join the email list. And that will send you an email for our virtual launch party that's happening on Friday at high noon Pacific Standard Time. I'm going to be on that call, y'all. That's so fun. For like many of you that have never been on a live call with me, I'm going to be there with other authors from the book. You can also sign up to be on our WhatsApp channel or through the Facebook page. There's multiple ways and links in the show notes where you'll be able to follow us. And I'd love for you to consider getting, a gift for yourself in reading this book, potentially giving it to other loved ones that you know who want to explore their human potential. It's a really special and unique gift for this time of the year. Okay, good. I'm glad I got to share that with y'all. That's something I have had on my mind. I meant to tell you all in my last podcast episode, but at least I got to it before Friday. Welcome to ADHD Brain. Okay, so now let's drop in together on today's episode. One of my beautiful paid Substack subscribers recently commented over on the Substack, and I'm so grateful she did because she was asking for my insights on journaling. As she mentioned, in her comment that growing up, she typically saw journaling as something to just like record life events, which I actually really related to. That's what I did as well when I was younger, kind of what had happened that day. And she was asking, what are your insights on it and how to use it more as a self-exploration tool. And that has led to this beautiful episode that's kind of tying together some things that have been coming through for me recently on just like the state of the world, how much change we're experiencing, how fast it's happening, and how much this tool can help anchor you during a process, a time like this right now. And most of all, I really, in reflecting over this, began to admit to myself, I know I've talked about journaling on and off on the podcast, but I've never really given it the spotlight like I want to today, because I've realized, wow, this tool over the last 8+ years of my life has really been one of the most powerful practices I use for coaching myself, for self-resourcing, for regulating, for self-exploration. So it's kind of ironic, honestly, that here we are coming up on 2 years of the podcast, and I have not devoted an episode to it yet. So, Cecilia, my dear, thank you so much for reaching out through the comments and saying, hey, can you go deeper on this? I am so delighted to do this today with y'all. So, in my opinion, and as I was thinking of like what journaling has done for me, I have started to realize that journaling, the way I use it, okay, is more of a sacred act of reparenting myself and definitely self-regulating, and also probably one of the top 3 tools that is helping me build secure attachment to myself. Been very clear with you all here that I have a disorganized attachment style. So building secure attachment for myself is one of the most important things. It's like, yes, I want this. I need this. And it really is more so than documenting necessarily my life for posterity, which is kind of what I was raised on journaling being. It is about being a loving witness to myself of my own experience. And I will say, the way I use journaling is definitely not in a format that's like, I hope posterity reads these. I don't actually, I think if my children were to read my journals in the future, it'd be probably a little bit overwhelming and scary for them to see how much like, whoa, there was a deep, deep struggle and intensity in my mother. So I don't write these as a like, here, let's put these on a shelf and everybody take these down and know what grandma was doing. These are like deeply private personal journals for me. So before I dive in a little any further, kind of giving you an outline just so you know my approach on journaling, I want to give you guys first, though, a roadmap of where we're going to go in the episode. And I've kind of divided it into two halves. In the first section, I'm going to talk about why, with the world the way it is right now, with the level of change we're experiencing, with the instability in the external, this really is such an important time for us to be building self trust. So, I'm going to kind of lay the framework for what I'm seeing, the instability out in the world. And then the second half of the episode is where I'm going to dive into the actual nitty gritty. What does this journaling that I do look like? And thanks to my Substack commenter, I actually went a lot deeper and I realized I actually have 4 different styles of journaling that I use, kind of like 4 different flavors. And I ended up deciding to call them just so we can keep track of them more easily. The first one is growth documentation. The second is pep talks. The third is brain dump dialogues. I can't wait to talk through that one with y'all. And the fourth is higher self channeling. Now, surprise, surprise. One of my favorite things about this episode and kind of what got born as I was creating it is that for all of my paid subscribers through Substack, I am also including a massive bonus with this episode of a beautiful PDF that I created to go along with this episode. I had such a fun time creating this. Like I said, I was crafting the episode, and then as I realized I have these 4 different styles, I was like, I really want them to walk away from this episode with something tangible that can walk them through each one of these with a lot more detail. So I'm going to touch on these a little bit in the episode, but that's where you're going to get the real meat. And, Cecilia, my Substack commenter, even asked me for, prompts and pieces like that. And I was like, you know what? These will be perfect in a digital format. So it will have starter prompts, insights on how to do each of these different styles. Once again, big shout out to Big C, Cecilia. Thank you for this amazing idea. Along with that, at the end of it, you'll see there's a little PS. I would love for you to feel free to share this PDF with other friends you know who could benefit from journaling in this way. I just realized as I was doing this how unique it is, the way that I journal. And I want more people to be able to use this tool in that way instead of the more cleaned up, oh, let's make sure that everybody could read this in the future and think that I had all my shit together way. Another special thing that I also like, the bonuses just keep coming on this episode that I included. It won't be in the PDF, but it will be on Substack in the additional notes. I am actually including pictures of my journal pages for each of these 4 different styles. I just recently did a couple episodes for y'all where I actually read from my journal, and I was like, no, we don't need to do another one of those. But I wanted you guys to be able to actually see and read some of these styles. Obviously, I emphasize this in the PDF, like this is not, these are not rules. You do not have to do it this way. But I'm hoping that these examples will give you some ideas. When you can see outside of the box and see somebody doing it a different way, it can kind of spur you to creatively make something of your own. So those images will also be in the paid subscriber section of the show notes for this episode. This episode, y'all, is kind of this is my big, it's like my Oprah episode where she's like, you get a car and you get a car. This is kind of my big holiday gift episode for the end of 2025 here. The next 2 episodes will hopefully be a little bit more chill, but I just had a lot to pack in here. Okay, so we've got our roadmap. Now let's dive in. So for those of my listeners who are in the considering process right now, okay, you're still in the, am I going to stay or am I going to go? Ooh, do I just want to reach through the airwaves and give you a big hug? Because not only are you considering one of the biggest shifts you could ever make in your life right now, but whoa, is the world in 2025 and at this moment, really feeling up, down, all around, and changing at speeds and rates that I keep hearing over and over, we've just never seen before. So you're going through your own personal piece of this, but what we're seeing on the bigger world stage, and really, I'm going to localize it kind of more to the US, is we have this AI bubble looming here in the US right now, just like all of this massive overspending and infrastructure around AI that's not really backed by actual gains from that. We have huge data farms being built that are taking massive water resources. I mean, y'all, as I've been researching this more, about grappling with my own ethical use of AI and how I want to use that in the future, this has been a piece that's been coming in where I'm like, oh my gosh, whoa. Especially watching how that's changing, the landscape of small towns in the US where they're putting these data centers. The cost of living is really, really, in my opinion, like I've been like, whoa, how are my kids going to make it if we keep headed this direction? Health insurance increased for next year for those of us that, like me, a business owner, a single mom that was getting tax credits. That has dramatically changed for me. In my town specifically, there's like development happening everywhere. It's been a huge change for me. And all of this, I've seen, those are just some of the small things that I've been noticing. I'm sure you've all noticed in your own ways in your own towns, the differences. I'm not even going into like the bigger themes from the year, right? I mean, here in the US, we've watched masked ICE agents on our streets pulling people. Like, many of us are going through big psychological shifts of starting to question, like, whoa, like what really matters? Why are we here? Can we actually change these systems? Are they too big to change? Starting to really notice how much billionaires and trillionaires are just in a completely different world and league compared to the rest of us. And, finding myself asking, like, whoa, what is the purpose? Do I matter? Big, big questions. So it can be really tempting if you have maybe perhaps found yourself doing this as well this year, along with, in addition to your own perhaps figuring out of your marriage, it can be really tempting when we are feeling like there's instability in the external world to start pulling back, shutting down, getting scared, and wanting to get small. That's often a trauma response. Oh, if stuff isn't safe, I need to get smaller. That's the way to be safer. It's not actually true, but it is what our brain thinks. And what I want to offer instead, the clarion call, I really want to sound, especially coming to the end of this year, for those of us like, wow, y'all, we made it through 2025. We are so close, is to instead say so powerfully that what uncertain times call for most, when you cannot depend on the external for safety, is trust in yourself. More and more, I am seeing how the trust that I built in myself over the last 7-8 years of considering divorce, making a decision, moving forward, and really just believing in myself is paying massive dividends right now. It is the foundation I have learned to go back to, that even when it starts to get overwhelming in the outside, I can come back. And along with that, I am, especially after this last month, everything we were doing around the continuum, narcissism, codependency, I am realizing more and more just how important self-worth is. I really believe that self-worth is at the heart of secure attachment. Let me say that again. I believe self-worth is at the heart of secure attachment. And typically, secure individuals for the most part, have a very positive and compassionate view of themselves and others.